maybe in a cave, maybe in the countryside, and we just can't see him unless we're looking for the beauty of nature. But he's there, and he's tucked away with the flowers and the beauty of spring. So there you have that. And so turning the page, we again are celebrating spring and the time of Easter. And here is, we could call it an angel or some kind of mythological character, bird character. And he has the world, the creation he's holding. And spring is a time for love and romance, especially for the young. And here she is crowning him amidst the flowers in there. And in the background here, we have, again, another figure. It could be a Vesna figure with the celebration of spring and the painting of eggs, because it is from the eggs that things are born. Pussy willows, like what's decorating this little tag here, are some of the hardiest and earliest of the flowering plants. And so the Slavic people really celebrated the pussy willow. And we also have an image here of the fates. And if you think about Greek mythology, you might remember the Graeae. Well, the Slavic people in their mythology called them the Sudice. And they were, again, sort of three fates, just like we have with the Greeks. And they had the spinning wheel. And again, it was about spinning, that someone's destiny, their birth, their life, and their death. And the sister who controlled death had scissors, and she would again cut that thread on the spinning wheel. And so there is an image of them. And so stories like Sleeping Beauty and some of the other fairy tales often have the image of the spinning wheel in them. And the idea of possibly an older, we might say crone or mysterious older woman. Maybe that is one of the Seduci, the one who determines your destiny and your ultimate fate at it. So we get our storybook, our fairy tale characters from that. And those myths go back, and those stories, even in some cases thousands of years, to the Greeks. And as people traveled, as they were nomadic, those stories entered other cultures. Characters took on different names. But ultimately, it was about that idea of your destiny, your fate. Destiny being something you might be able to mold to a certain extent for yourself by what you choose to do. But fate being that ultimately some things were beyond your control. Here it says, "Were I thy fairy godmother who came to bless your birth, instead of granting wishes 3, I'd give you all the earth." And this is a vintage little postcard. Here's another one with a little fairy and cleaning. But so the idea of Cinderella and the fairy godmother, we get those from ancient stories throughout many different cultures. Here's a painting of Sleeping Beauty, and the prince come to find her. And here, even Little Red Riding Hood. Think of what these stories represented with their messages. To stay on the path, okay? To stay safe by doing what you've been told. To not talk to strangers. In this case, it's the wolf. Because who knows who they are and what they might do. And so there we have that. And at the end of spring here, we're coming to the end of the season and the end of part 1. We have here This is a rusoka, a rusoka, who is a water nymph and a mythological character, a spirit that would bring in rains to water the crops. And here I have it on the background is some of that klimt paper again. And they were also a nurturer of the woodland creatures like the ducks. And here we have a little kingfisher in there. And so I've put her within the water, the waves of the water, and again used that moon in the background. And so we turn it, and here we have a young woman who is wearing a wreath of flowers, which was part of the spring and summer festivities. And they would throw those wreaths of flowers into the river in their ceremonies, and they would dream of who their husbands might be. And so spring was a time for young people where they could be out and about at night in the forests and looking for magic flowers, or maybe the wreath, catching the wreath of a young woman that he was interested in. And just as a side note, here we have, this is a painting Catherine made of her cat. And so I tucked him in there. I cut him out of the background and tucked him into that scene as well. But she's thinking of the future and where her life might lie. Because especially hundreds of years ago, and really even up to 100, 150 years ago, and in some places of the world today, women had very little control of their destinies. They were often told who to marry and didn't have much say in their husband. And so the idea that maybe they married for love, well, that was maybe more of a romantic idea and not reality, because marriage would bring status to any family, whether it was a noble family or a poor family. It would bring money potentially. And so again, the young woman needing to be able to sew and embroider to help herself find her husband was very important, but also a lot of pressure. And so we're going to end this session of the video here with a final image of, this is the goddess Cupola, who was a summer solstice goddess, June. Think of mid-June and the summer solstice. And this is a painting of Catherine's with the dragon and the fairies and the flowers. And I've just incorporated it this way. And I have a scene of more fairies, even some that are sort of insect-like in the background there, celebrating the summer solstice and this time of food and growth and plenty. This is some bookbinder, from the spine of a book. When you take a book apart, let me grab it here real quick, hopefully not upset everything. When you take the spine of a book apart and you get that real, see there, that edging on it, that's what that is. And I like to use those because they have wonderful texture to them, as you can see. And then we have more beautiful fibers softening it all. And so I'm going to stop it there, and there will be a second video here shortly with part 2 of Enchanted Lands. I think I forgot to mention that in the very beginning, that I've called this storybook Enchanted Lands. And again, a nod to the Ukrainian people and hoping for peace with what is happening in this very modern age. Bye-bye.